Well, the notes are done, and I am wearing this green shirt, so maybe it was all meant to be. So, let's go for it. What's up, everybody? This is Alex once again, twice in one night. Again, with the EOT News Flash War of the Spark limited set review. These are our green cards, and if you haven't already, make sure you go back and watch the white, the blue, the red, and the black sets of the review, and be sure to stick around for the gold artifacts and lands going up later this week. That's going to be the marathon, and I might have some help for that one, so be on the lookout there. If you haven't watched one of these before, we're operating on a pretty simple grading rubric. We have 6 categories our cards can fall into. We have S cards, which are your sideboards, which are the things you bring in when your opponent gives you something that you can't quite answer with your main deck. Maybe it's an artifact or enchantment. Those kinds of cards you'll bring in to answer that card specifically. We have our Bs, which are our build-arounds, which need a good deck to be kind of built around them to function correctly. I've been using the example of Persistent Petitioners a lot this review, so use that kind of as your baseline there. And from there we have our actual numeric grading. One are the cards that you should probably never play. They're playable, obviously, but they have such a low impact on the game, and they're just really not worth it when there are just better cards out there. 2s are your more generic filler. Those are the cards that your decks for limited and sealed will probably be mostly made up of. Generic filler, creatures, spells, things like that. You're not embarrassed to play them, but they're certainly not the best spells. Your 3s are your more premium creatures, spells, removals, things of that nature. The Planeswalkers especially fall into the category for this set. And then the 4s are the absolute bombs that will absolutely win you a game if you're able to, cast them and actually get them, to do something on the battlefield. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in with our first green card. This is our Boreal Gazer. A single green mana gets you a common beast 0/3 with reach, and as it enters the battlefield, you put a land from your hand on the battlefield tapped. Oh god, this is actually, it's still decent. This is one of the few ways that you can put lands directly into play with, in this set. And it's actually kind of interesting. This isn't putting forests in, as some of the other ramp spells are. This is putting any land into play. So that's pretty decent in that regard. It's a decent blocker, and if you can pump it, it's pretty solid, but the question still remains, why would you want to pump this? It's not terribly good, and there's just better ways to ramp in this set. So unless this is your only way to do it, I would definitely try to avoid our Boreal Gazer here. It's a 1.5 for me. Pretty underwhelming. Unlike our next card here, we've got Arlen, Voice of the Pack, probably the best of the uncommon walkers. Maybe some flack right there, I don't know. 4 green gets you a legendary Planeswalker Arlen at uncommon, 7 starting loyalty, and with the aesthetic ability that each creature you control that's a wolf or werewolf, as it enters the battlefield, it gets an extra +1/+1 counter on it. -2, you make a green wolf 2/2, not a green 2/2 green wolf creature token that automatically becomes a 3/3. So for 7 loyalty, you're getting 9 power of wolves out of her throughout the course of the game, and if you can proliferate at any point on Arlen, you'll get a couple more out of that. So unfortunately, there's only one other wolf in this set, which we'll get to in just a second. So don't think you're gonna be going too crazy with it, but just the 9 power she's gonna be able to power out over the course of her longevity, unless you proliferate her, super powerful here. So definitely a 2.5 for me. If you can proliferate, it gets even better, and if you have enough of the next card, Arlen's Wolf, it does get even better because those come in even stronger. So Arlen's Wolf, segue, is a 2 and a green wolf at common, can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and it is also a 3/2. So anytime you get some counters on this thing, it becomes really, really powerful. We're already above bear stats, which we are kind of in a bear format, as we talked about a lot of the past couple of videos, and being able to pump this thing up and get it out of the way of those creatures that would typically be able to block it quite easily gives this thing a really good chance of surviving and making a pretty solid impact on the game. It's a solid 2.25 for me. It's a great beater, but can get outcast kind of quickly by more expensive creatures, obviously. But you do have obviously ways to pump it in green, so it might go the distance for you here. Next card, I'm going to assuredly die to at least once in this limited format. I'm guaranteeing it right now. This is Awakening of Vitu-Ghazi, 3 green, rare instant. You put 9 +1/+1 counters on target land you control. It becomes a legendary 0/0 elemental creature with haste named Vitu-Ghazi. It's still a land. If there wasn't any, I mean, there's so little instant speed removal in this set that I'm kind of convinced that this thing is just absolutely disgusting. Thankfully, it doesn't have trample. Otherwise, this would be a disaster. But if you have the ability to play this on your opponent's end step, untap, and start beating in for 9 a turn, that's basically the abyss on a stick here. So this thing's pretty solid here. I gave it a 3.5. I do think it is that good. If I'm proven wrong, so be it. But on its face, this card's really powerful and quite scary. Yeah. Moving right along, we've got Band Together. This is a really cool card here. 2 and a green instant at common, up to 2 target creatures you control, each deal damage equal to their power to another target creature. So we've been getting more of these one-sided fight effects a lot in Limited recently, and this is probably one of the best ones we've seen so far because we're allowing 2 creatures to team up on something bigger that they might not have been able to take down originally, and having that creature not deal damage back. Super powerful here. This is a 2.5 for me. Aside from the pump spells that we do get in green, this is probably green's best removal spell, which is a weird thing to say, but this is absolutely green removal and very good green removal as well. Just hope that they don't blow you up by killing one of the creatures in response. But other than that, it's fine. Next up, we've got the Bloom Hulk. 3 and a green, it plants elemental common, 4/4. As it enters the battlefield, you proliferate. So to proliferate, you would choose any number of permanents and or players, and then give each another counter of each kind they already had. So typically in this format, you're going to be seeing a lot of +1/+1 counters and loyalty counters. And we do have one exception. We have charge counters on another card, but we'll get to that later. This is a perfectly reasonable card here. You know, with all the +1/+1 counters that you can be playing, most likely in green-white or green-blue, I think. This is a great way to just add more of them on there. Any of the walkers you have, you just add more of them on there, which just makes this card really solid here. It's a great beater too, you know, for getting a point of toughness and power for its mana cost is really solid. I gave Bloom Hulk here a 2.25. You know, if the format gets pretty grindy like I imagine it could be, this card stock goes way up because those +1/+1 counters are going to help you push through the final points of damage and really take your games to the next level. Next up, we've got the Bond of Flourishing. 1 and a green, sorcery uncommon. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, and you gain 3 life. So this is the Celestia and the Simic teaming up. I love the way that they're doing the combinations of their guild symbols. Really, really cool and very natural looking as well. This is a decent card. You know, some of the other bonds are a little bit more flashy, a little bit more powerful, but this one's fine. You know, it's gonna dig you 3 cards deep. It's gonna find basically whatever's on top. You know, in your normal limited deck, it's so rare that you're gonna have, you know, especially in green, an abundance of non-creature spells. So you're definitely gonna find a permanent, be a creature, land, or planeswalker with this. And gaining 3 life is basically just icing on top of the cake. It's a 2.25 for me. I'll be happy to run 1 or 2 copies of this, especially if I've got something really big in my deck I'm digging to. Next up, we've got Centaur Nurturer. 3 and a green, Centaur Druid at common to 2/4, gains you 3 life and when it enters the battlefield, and you can tap it to add any mana of any color to your mana pool. To me, this is probably one of the best mana fixers in the set, despite it being 4 whopping mana. The rest of them are all uncommon and just a little bit more fragile, but I like this guy a lot. To gain 3 life gets you back in the game, puts you that much further ahead of your opponent, and to be able to tap for any color of mana, if there is a 5-color green deck or 3-color, how many colors you can put into it, this is going to be a key piece of it. There's a couple other pieces of fixing and ramp in green as well that'll play a big key in actually letting you cast those big, massive spells. And even potentially, this is one of the few colors that can actually get the finales up to that, you know, vaunted 10x. So is it possible? I don't know, but it's cool to think about, and I think Centaur Nurturer is definitely a key piece to that deck. It's a solid 2.5 for me. Great stats as well on this guy. Next up, we've got the Challenger Troll. This is a fun little card. So the green-white deck wants to go really big, obviously, and a 6/5 that prevents all creatures you control power 4 or greater from being blocked by one or more creatures for only 5 mana, 4 and a green at uncommon. Really weird transitioning here. This is going to be probably, a solid finisher, because as your creatures are pumping themselves up, your opponent's going to have to make some decisions on how can they chump block, how can they double block, and this Challenger Troll removes all of that from the equation. So I don't think if you're able to untap with the Troll here and your opponent has any matter of board state, it's going to be gone very, very quickly. And there's a couple of cards in here, especially at common, that give all your creatures trample as well. That could be a key piece of this deck to just alpha strike your opponent off the board. So I gave it a 2.5 for right now. I think it could be a little bit weaker than that, but stats compared to mana cost, this card's really scary. Next up, we've got Courage in Crisis. 2 and a green sorcery at common. Puts a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and then you proliferate. I look at this as more just putting 2 +1/+1 counters on a target creature, because you're already proliferating it as well. So 2 counters for 3 mana, and then whatever else you can power up is going to be absolutely solid. It's going to be all the rest of your team. It's going to be your planeswalkers, especially if you're in this wacky 5-color deck that seems to be sort of floating beneath the surface in the green deck. Potentially could be a thing here, and those planeswalkers are going to get out of control very quickly. It's a solid 2. I need to see if there really is this 5-color deck existing here, and especially if the +1/+1 counters are worth it, which I do think they are. This could go up in stock quite a bit, but definitely a solid card here, at least a 1 of in every green deck you play. Next up, we've got Evolution Sage. 2 and a green Elf Druid at uncommon. It's a 3/2. This is a really interesting card because obviously the stats alone make it playable. It's more than a bear, and we're in a bear format. But if you put it in the deck that can abuse it, constantly putting lands into play, having targets to proliferate, this chick gets out of control so fast here. So it's a 2.5 just on stats alone, but the build around me potential of the card pushes this thing so much higher than that. So I don't know where this thing can possibly go to, but if there's a deck for it and you have it in it, it's going to be super powerful. This is one powerful druid here. Next up, we've got Finale of Devastation. X green sorcery at mythic rare. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature card to convert a mana cost X or less. Put it onto the battlefield. If you do, search your library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get X+X until the end of the turn and gain haste. Ooh! That's a lot of text right there. So this is like a birthing pot effect essentially here. There isn't anything that's actually 10 mana to go and get with this. So really you're just trying to shoot for that massive anthem effect. And green is the one color that I think could possibly pull this off. So this is one of the more sort of, the full range of this card is actually accessible for you beyond the other phenomena, which are just, powerful by themselves. But I think this is the one that you could actually get there. It's a 2.25 for me because it really is more of a build around me though. You've got to already have the double green to start with, and then you need to have additional mana, which shouldn't be a problem in green, but you need something to go and get with all of it. So as long as you've got creatures in your deck that are worth it, you've got a good card here, but you definitely need those cards first and foremost, and just being able to go and get anything you want, not really all that powerful for me, so still decent though. Next up, we've got Forced Landing. This is an instant at common. Puts target creature with flying on the bottom of its owner's library. This is one of those weird cards, though. Depending on the format you're playing in, it has, very different application. So at your pre-release, this is absolutely main deckable because there's no telling what your opponent's going to throw down. Maybe it's going to be the new Niv Mizzet or any of the blue or white flyers. Like there's so many crazy things in this set that you have to be prepared for, and having one dead card in your sealed pool at the pre-release, not a huge deal. On the flip side, in draft, this is a sideboard only because you're able to read the table. You can see what's coming around, so you can always really build your deck and tune it to what you know is going to be played against you because you have some idea of what other people should be drafting. So sideboard it for draft, and it's a 2 for your sealed, especially pre-releases. It's a good card, it's filler, but it does run the risk of being a bit dead at times. And then we got a card that will never be dead, a card that's as old as Magic itself. Giant Growth. A single green mana gets you an instant at common. Target creature gets +3/+3 until the end of turn. This is one of the best tricks ever printed, bar none. It's still awesome after all of these years, and a great way to punch through, you know, your smaller green creatures. You think it's safe to block? Don't think so. Giant Growth is going to get you. This is a solid 2.25 for me. Could be a little bit better than that, but I've never been a big fan of combat tricks, but this is definitely one of the better ones out there. Next up, we have got the God Eternal Ronus. 3 green legendary creature, zombie god, mythic rare, 5/5 death touch. As Ronus enters the battlefield, double the power of each other creature you control until the end of turn. Those creatures gain vigilance until the end of turn, and whenever it dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. So the only thing that's keeping Ronus from being one of the better gods, you know, obviously Kefnet, Bantu, and Oketra are definitely there at the top, and then Ilharg is sort of at the bottom, if you ask me, is the fact that you need to have some setup. You know, and obviously this is going to be a grindy kind of go-wide format, lots of creatures on the board, zombies, tokens, all kinds of nonsense. So it's definitely feasible that when you play this, you're able to alpha strike with pretty much impunity because you have vigilance and that double power. Unfortunately, we're not doubling the toughness, which does hurt it a little bit, but you're really going to get a really good attack in for sure with Ronus. And then even Death Touch. You know, this is eventually just going to turn into just a creature who just turns sideways consistently. They'll have to block it eventually, so it's going to get there. It might just take a little bit of more time than the other gods would have because the effect can be just so immediate in a lot of cases. So it's a 3.5. This card's still really hard to beat, but in my opinion, it's not the best of the other gods right now. Could be wrong. We'll have to see. Next up, we've got Jiang Yangu, Wildcrafter, 2 and a green legendary Planeswalker Yangu, and there's a little Mogwu in the background. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, no, Mowu. Mowu's in the background right there. Jiang Yangu is the Planeswalker. For all reference, I've been seeing people who are like, oh no, that's not him. I'm like, I don't know. Uncommon, 3 starting loyalty. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has tap, add 1 mana of any color, and you can -1 to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So here we go again. More mana ramp at a relatively easy, you know, card to find. Uncommons are going to be, you know, plentiful at your draft table. So if you do want to go big green, big 5-color green, Jiang Yangu is definitely be a part of that deck. Being able to put the counters on the creatures to go even bigger. Super powerful. It's just a little bit unfortunate that he only has the 3 loyalty, so you will eventually lose out on that effect to generate the mana, but hopefully you can get it out fast enough and protect it so that it doesn't really hurt you all that much. Solid 2.5 for me. This card's really good, and I can definitely see this. This is obviously another piece of the 5-color deck if it exists. Next up, we've got the Crowl Stinger, 2 and a green, Insect Assassin, common, Death Touch, 2/2. Bears with Death Touch. What can you say about cards like this? These cards are great. You know, think of the Drooling Grudian from Ravnica Allegiance. That's one of my favorite black cards in the set. That 3-mana 2/2 black Death Toucher. Awesome card, and to see it basically here again is fantastic. You know, if you're the bigger green deck and your opponent just has all the cheaper creatures, this is a great early play to just keep turning sideways or keep on the defensive to let them attack into you while you set up your bigger board state. This is an awesome card. It's a 2.25 for me. Excellent filler for your green decks. Never leave home without this guy, or gal, or insect. Whatever it is, it's good. Next up, we've got the Crunch Wrangler, 1 and a green, 2/1 human warrior at common, has trample, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on the Crunch Wrangler. It's kind of underwhelming, unfortunately. There's only a handful of creatures that you want to be playing to power up the Wrangler here, but it's still a decent bear at that point. It does trade with all bears, you know, even only having 1 toughness. It's just kind of underwhelming. You know, if you have a bunch of 4 power or greater creatures in your deck, your curve might actually be too high. So maybe if you have the mana, you know, the acceleration to support it, then you've got something. But there's a lot of hoops to jump through to make this card more powerful. So I'd probably leave this one in the sideboard if you ask me. This is a 1.75 for me. Kind of an underwhelming bear. Next up, we've got Mowu, the Loyal Companion. 3 and a green, legendary creature, Hound. Uncommon 3/3, trample and vigilance. If one or more +1/+1 counters will be put onto Mowu Loyal Companion, that many +1/+1/+1 counters are put onto it instead. Awesome. So this is the Toothy ability. No, Pier. This is Pier's ability from Battle Bond. Toothy is the other one. This is a really powerful effect here. With all the +1/+1 counters, honestly, in this set, Mowu can get absolutely massive here, and the Trample and Vigilance combination makes this thing such a powerful attacker. So if you're able to untap and immediately make it bigger, you're swinging for 5 power or more on turn 5. Like, this card is nuts. It's a solid 2.5 for me. Really hard to stop in combat once it gets going. Very, very cool. Next up, we have New Horizons. 2 and a green enchantment aura at common. Enchants the land, and as it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, maybe Mowu. And the enchanted land has add 2 mana of any one color. So here's more of that acceleration we're talking about to get you into that multicolor green deck. Especially with green kind of being the +1/+1 color in this set, having the proliferate, I think this is an absolute all-star in this set. So I think any green deck will want to play this. This is a solid 2.5 for me, 100%. Next up, we've got our next green Planeswalker. We've got Nissa, who shakes the world. 3 green legendary Planeswalker Nissa at rare, 5 starting loyalty. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green mana. +1 allows you to put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to one target land you control. You untap it and becomes a 0/0 elemental creature token with vigilance and haste. That's still a land, so you get a 3/3 land out of that. Pretty cool. It's -8 is you get an emblem with lands you control have indestructible. Pretty cool. Search your library for any number of forest cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. I don't know how relevant that -8 is going to be completely honest. If you can get to it, that's fine. But to be able to constantly make a constant stream of 3/3s that are going to be relatively hard to attack through, especially if your opponent is, maybe just a little bit behind, especially when you're in green with all this acceleration. This is a really powerful threat on in and of herself, automatically taking you from 5 to 10 mana the very next turn without any land drops. Super, super powerful here. So if you can get to the 8, go for it, but I don't think you're going to need it. She's an absolute monster. Solid 3 for me. Nissa's awesome. Next up, we have Nissa's Triumph, double green sorcery at uncommon. Search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards. If you control a Nissa Planeswalker, instead search your library for up to 3 land cards. Reveal those cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is probably one of the more underwhelming ramp spells that we've seen in a very long time. Being so dependent on having another card to get the fullest and best effect out of it, it's pretty hard to wrangle in limited, I think. So only getting 2 forests, only going to your hand really hurts this one a little bit. But if you are kind of going for that big strategy and trying to get all the mana you can into play, this isn't a bad place to start. If this is your turn 2 play, you're effectively drawing 2 cards, you've got lands for the next couple turns. It's not terrible, but I don't think it's all that great either. Solid filler, in my opinion, this though. It's a solid 2. Next up, we've got Paradise Druid. 1 and a green elf druid, uncommon, 2/1, has hexproof as long as it's untapped. That's pretty big here. And you can tap her to add any 1 mana of any color. Self-fixing, stellar fixing, stellar ramp, like just this is a card that every green deck will want to be playing full stop. This is a solid 3 for me. Not a whole lot more to be said about it. Just ramp creatures are always good. And you can't even kill this one either. No Bolt the Bird. Next up, we've got Plane-Wide Celebration. 5 green sorcery at rare. Choose 4. You may choose the same mode more than once. And your options are create a 2/2 citizen creature token. That's all colors. Pretty neat. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Also neat. Proliferate. Neat. Gain 4 life. Also neat. So I look at this card and I can't imagine a situation that you can't find some combination of all of these effects that it won't just turn the game around or just completely shut the door on your opponent. With all of the acceleration in green, we've got New Horizons. We have the shoot, I forgot it now. New Horizons and Centaur Nurturer. Yeah, you've got so much common ramp in this set that's going to just push you up to this spell well before it should be cast. This is easily like a turn 5 play in some green decks. Absolutely stellar, and like I said, there's no combination of these effects that I don't think you can, finagle to get some advantage going and just really close the door on your opponent. This is a solid 2.5 for me, but you definitely be able to ramp this one out, and if you can, absolutely devastating. Next up, we've got the Pollen Bright Druid. This is a 1 and a green elf druid at common, 1/1. When it enters battlefield, you choose one, either proliferate or put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And I like this card quite a bit. It's excellent, excellent filler for green decks. Power and toughness notwithstanding, having this kind of flexibility to add more +1/+1 counters to your team if it's a late draw, or put a counter on something if it's in the early game to get that later proliferation engine going even more. Super flexible card here, solid filler, easy 2 for me. Next up, we've got the Primordial Worm, 4 green worm, common 7/6, and a lot of flavor text. Yeah. All the ramp in green obviously leads to some very big creatures, and this is one of the easy ones to get for this set and then this color. Nothing flashy. If you can give it some kind of evasion, be it trample or anything like that, it's going to be even better. It's going to turn into the abyss at some point. Your opponent has to be able to block this at some point, and if they can't handle it, they're not going to win the game. That's simple. Solid 2 for me. Next up, we've got Return to Nature, 1 and a green instant at common. Choose one, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or exile a card from a graveyard. That graveyard one I don't think is going to be too relevant in this set unless your opponent has the Bonds of Revival tricks going, which, we'll see if that actually makes a difference. But beyond that, this is simply just a sideboard card. Bring it against the things that you can't handle from your opponent, and leave it there. Leave it in the sideboard otherwise. Next up, we've got Snare Spinner, 1 and a green, 1/3 spider at common, has reach, and whenever it blocks a creature with flying, it gets +2/+0 till the end of turn. This card's been printed to death. It's always going to be good in whatever variation it shows up in, whether it's a 1/4 or a 1/2, whatever it is. This card is always playable and limited, especially against all the flyers in this set. This is just a bread and butter green magic card, and I'm happy to see this in my pools and in my drafts. 2.25 for me. Moving right along, getting into the last couple of green cards. Appreciate you hanging out with me and chugging along. We've got Steady Aim, 1 and a green instant at common. I believe that's Hawtley up there doing her thing. Or maybe no. I don't know who that is, but she looks cool. She's badass. Untaps target creature, and it gets +1/+4 until the end of turn, and also gains reach. We've seen some more effects like this. I believe Bonds of Strength was the one from Ravnica Allegiance, and this is a pretty good approximation of that. Obviously, there's plenty of flyers in this set, and having a lot more toughness than those will be an easy way of taking them down. So this is a pretty solid trick right here. It's a 1.5 for me. It's almost a sideboard card, but I can see, worlds where you might need something like this against an aggressive deck, and you just need to slow down their assault just a little bit to get through the end of the game. So pretty solid, but it's a 1.5 for me. Nothing all that flashy. Next up, we have Storm the Citadel, 4 and a green sorcery at uncommon. Until the end of turn, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. I would say that last line of text is basically irrelevant. This is literally just 5 mana overrun. Super powerful, obviously. If your creatures don't have any kind of evasion, be it trample, first strike, or whatever, this is a little bit harder of a sell, but that's a lot of power being generated, and your opponent's going to have a hard time blocking all of it. So it might not win you the game, but this could be the card to push you in the right direction. So it's a 2.25 for me in just terms of being able to set up a win, or just, could outright win you the game in some cases. Next up, we've got Thundering Ceratok, 4 and a green, Rhino at common. It's a 4/5 with trample. When Thundering Ceratok enters the battlefield, other creatures you control gain trample. Maybe we combo with Storm the Citadel with some ramp, 10 mana. We'll see. Gain trample until the end of turn. So this is probably an approximation of another Alpha Strike type effect here. All the +1/+1 counters, all the larger power on a lot of the green creatures we're seeing here, and be able to accelerate this out and on an early turn, maybe hitting this on turn 4, even just a turn ahead of curve, could be the difference between you swinging a lot of damage and a little bit of damage and really putting the pressure on your opponent. I give this guy a 2.25. It's a really good body as well and can easily go into the late game and actually have a really solid effect. Next up, we've got Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. Another 3-mana green Planeswalker here, 2 in a green rare, 4 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Vivian. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash. Very cool. +1 until the end of your turn. Up to 1 target creature gains vigilance and reach. And -2 lets you look at the top 3 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as as that card remains exiled and it's a creature, you may cast it as if it was a creature. Yeah, it's a lot of really weird wording. So for as long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card and may cast it if it's a creature card. So why you wouldn't pick a creature card is beyond me. I don't know. So obviously, being able to plus this up and then minus and just kind of do this sort of back and forth routine will let you churn through a lot of your deck, and you're finding these creatures and casting them at flash speed. Really, really, really cool. Obviously your opponent doesn't get to see the card, but they do know it's a creature. But so that gives them some kind of insight, but they don't know exactly what they're walking into. So a pretty cool trap you can set here. Or even if you're just not taking any damage and you're just not blocking, you just flash creatures in on their instep and have, just a lot of board presence very, very quickly. Vivian's super cool Planeswalker. Solid 3 for me. And she brings along a weapon this time as well into this set. This is Vivian's Arc Bow. 1 in a green, legendary artifact at rare. Pay X and tap it, discard a card, look at the top X card of your library. You may put a creature card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in any random order. So we do have a little bit of graveyard shenanigans that are going on here. Obviously, we can use something like Planetary Celebration to get those cards back, which is kind of a thing. But this is more just like more akin to Survival of the Fittest. Oh shoot! I'm blanking on the card now. The druid from not Hermit Druid. Come on, Alex, you can do this. Shoot, I can't think of it off the top of my head now. Hold on. Survival of the Fittest, MTG. I forget the name of the creature that I'm thinking. Fauna Shaman. There we go. Fauna Shaman. Okay. That took too long. I apologize. Yeah, so a bit like Fauna Shaman, a bit like Survival of the Fittest, kind of like a Birthing Tot effect, which is pretty cool here. This is a great way to be able to churn through your deck at a very rapid speed. This is the one way to get Fibble Thip, or one of the 2 ways to get Fibble Thip into play and draw those 2 cards, so combo. But yeah, to be able to just pitch excess lands, creatures you don't need anymore, and use the mana, which you're definitely accelerating into with green, and be able to dig super deep into your deck and putting those creatures into play. And if they have a cool ETB effect, all the better. This is a really powerful card here. You definitely do need some cards to go and get with it. But I think just with the consistency of green and hitting a lot of mana, you're going to be able to dig deep enough to find something that you can play off of it. And putting it in instant speed is nothing to sneeze at either. This is a really powerful card. Can definitely see this making impacts both in limited and constructed. Very cool stuff. Next up, we've got Vivian's Grizzly. She brings a friend as well. 2 in a green, 2/3, Bear Spirit at common. You can pay 3 in a green to look at the top 3 card of your library. If it's a creature or a planeswalker card, you may reveal it, put it into your hand. If you don't, you put that card on the bottom of your library instead. So we've got a great late game mana sink. Pretty solid stats, especially when you are in a bear format like we've been talking about. Lets you find your biggest beaters and your planeswalkers. This is a really solid green common and a 2.25 for me. Bread and butter card right here. Enough said. And our very last green card, until we move on to the multicolors. I'm going to relish this moment of just simplicity. Okay. This is Ward Scale Crocodile. 4 in a green common at Crocodile. 5/3 with hexproof, so this creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls. The only downside to this creature is the fact that it has 3 toughness. But if you can pump it up for any amount, 1 extra +1/+1 counter turns this thing into a very real threat here. And being a 5-drop, especially in this color where you can get this down on turn 4 and then start powering it up even more, this thing very could easily run away with an entire game with your opponent just not being able to target this thing ever. So pretty solid. It's a 2 just because of the body though. But like I said, tricks and counters can make this thing really stack up and do some serious damage there. So green cards are done, everybody. We're going to be doing multicolors very, very soon. The golds, the artifacts, and the lands. That is going to be the marathon of this set. I'm looking forward to it. Might have some help, so be lucky to see some. Be excited to see some new faces, perhaps. As always, if you think that I'm wrong, if you think that I've missed something about a card, definitely let me know down in the comments. I'm always open to discussion, obviously. Let's get that dialogue going because it's the only way we get better as Magic players is by having conversation about Magic cards. Because I'll see one angle, you'll see another, and at that point, the whole picture comes together. So something to keep in mind, just your bit of philosophy right there. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the video. Go back and check out all the previous colors. The white, the blue, the black, and the red videos are already up. The pre-release is this weekend, and I can't think of a better way to prep than watching these videos. I may be a bit biased, but hey, when it's war, you do what you can. So thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back later this week with more War of the Spark Limited Set Review. Have a great night.